Hello beautiful people, Carl here from Games, Brains and Headbanging Life, gbhblofficial.com for short. And it's Game Review Time is developed by Cozy Game Pals, a two-person team, and published by Blumhouse Games. Yeah, I also didn't know this, but they do have an actual studio, game studio. Fear the Spotlight we're talking about is a lo-fi horror game with retro gameplay, one that delivers light fright, disturbing atmosphere, and a compelling story that I think ends up having more heart than first expected. I thoroughly enjoyed this game, although I know it's got a little bit of criticism as others aren't perhaps as invested as I was, but I really enjoyed it. Played from the third-person perspective, players taking the role of Vivian in Chapter 1 and Amy in Chapter 2, with the latter unlocked upon completing the former. They are teenage girls, best friends, and are sneaking into their school after hours to conduct a seance in the library. Right, that's a weird start, right? Because you're thinking, why the school? Well, it's because of a fire many years ago, a disaster that cost the lives of many students, and Amy, the more rebellious of the two, wants to see if they can contact the dead using a spirit board. Which, you know, goes about as well as you might expect. This game that doesn't surprise, it sticks to the kind of type and the horror that you would expect. The school, after all, has a very dark past, and across Vivian's 2 to 3 hour story, players will uncover the truth, all while things go bump in the hallways.
Holy crap. I can't believe it's working. Spirit, who are you? Are you the one I hear following me in the halls?
Wait, what? Amy, has something been following you around? Spirit, are you dangerous? Amy, I don't like this. I'm scared.
It's going to be okay, Vivian. Take deep breaths.
Amy, I want to stop! Amy?
If you're wondering how Amy's story unfolds, no spoilers. I'm going to avoid that, except to tell you it runs alongside Vivian's, but takes on a more psychological angle. It's also shorter, scarier, I think, and more emotional. But all of that will make sense when you play it, and I do suggest you play this game because I think it's great. Its flaws, most of which are more apparent on replay, are quite forgivable as so much effort has gone into making this an enjoyable experience and a love letter to PS1 style horror games, particularly the likes of Silent Hill. However, unlike the beloved Konami classic, Fear the Spotlight is a much easier game to get to grips with, both from an exploration perspective and a puzzle solving perspective. In fact, I'd say it's fairly straightforward, even though some of the puzzles ask you to do some old school things like, check this, remembering a code or writing it down, or just use your phone and take a picture. That's what I do. Likewise, exploring the school might seem initially daunting, but it's quite a contained environment. New areas are unlocked by finding keys, completing puzzles, and more, with the game encouraging forward movement. Sure, there's backtracking here and there, but not as much as you would think, and every item you find has a use, including some clever twists on health packs. Vivian, who suffers from asthma, has inhalers, and Amy makes use of incense to calm her down. It's a nice touch that relates to the characters, even if the game is way too generous with these pickups, especially as there is no combat and only reoccurring boss characters to avoid and hide from throughout. There's a final boss that involves you having to do some variation that could be seen as combat, but it's more puzzle solving than anything else. Their appearances are also scripted, making dealing with them even easier on replay. They do provide most of the frights though, even if there is a solid attempt to scare the player's reoccurring phantoms. Alas, these are far too frequent, and I think get really silly as the game goes on. Like all horror, especially supernatural horror, your mileage will vary. I didn't find the phantoms scary, but I found the game's overall atmosphere quite creepy and was taken in by the dark Phantom of the Opera inspired story. Unfortunately, as much as I can praise the story and the characters voiced well here too, there's far too much going on for a game this short. So much that certain moments that should have emotional weight end up being quite light. It's cohesive enough, but I can't help but feel it would have been better focusing on one or two things rather than 4 or 5. It really is a lot packed in here. But I still think it's a great game and well worth playing, especially if you like old school horror games with retro aesthetics that comes from modern minds. You've got the old school visuals and feel and design, but modern minds thinking about how people play games and what's enjoyable these days. It is Fear the Spotlight, and I think it's great. What do you reckon? You got any thoughts and you want to share? You know what to do? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.